YouTube, I apologize for leaving y'all on a cliffhanger. I hope that I released this video not too far from the third part, but as y'all can see, we have the fourth part. I believe there's an episode after this one, so we got a good amount of story left of the anime Erased. Y'all, so far this has been a tragic, hectic, just joyride of an anime. We got, so far, I'm not gonna lie, this is going up with Death Note. I would say it's just very, very interesting and intriguing, just like Death Note. It's giving me Death Note vibes, not gonna lie. But y'all, I actually want to see what happens next because very intriguing. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
To the future, believing that she truly does have a bright future ahead of her. The next day at school, the teacher ends up calling Satoru back to the teacher's lounge in order to give him a little bit of explanation and closure to the situation. Kaio's mother isn't going to be able to see Kaio for a while, and Kaio's going to be staying with her grandmother, as I explained earlier. Satoru thanks him once again, but specifically,
if y'all, I don't know who's watching this on the fourth part, but if you are, the mom is an abusive mother. And we don't want Kaio with her
this time, for the words that he had said earlier, that they couldn't let his courageous efforts end in tragedy. He had really appreciated that, and it truly made him happy. The teacher says it's kind of a messed up situation in general, so this obviously can't be too much of a happy situation just because of what happened in the past, but he says hopefully this was enough of a reward for his efforts, being able to see her smile. Finally, he asked Satoru where he was keeping Kaio the entire time, since he had ended up talking to his mom and they weren't at her place at the time. Satoru breaks down his little plan of hiding her in the old school bus at the neighboring school, and Yashiro was pretty surprised, as he says,
y'all remember when Kaio was found by that one guy? I think that was the killer. So, like, are we not going to look into that? Are we not going to tell the police? Because all the stuff was there. All the equipment to, like, kill the other people and all that. It was all there.
It's only a place that kidnappers like you would go, huh? And Satoru kind of laughs it off, but honestly, it is a place that only kidnappers would go, and an actual kidnapper did end up showing up. They just didn't notice Kaio was there. But fast forward, we get another breakdown of the situation. Kaio's officially been saved now, but next, there are still two targets here. We got Aya and Hiromi. Now, Hiromi's kind of easy because he's already classmates with them, he's already friends with them, so they'd be able to stay close with them and keep him safe. But with Aya, she goes to a whole nother school. He knows that she spends some type of time with Yuki, but how is he even supposed to approach her when they have nothing in common and she has no clue who he is?
By the way, we're supposed to figure out who the killer is, so let's see.
Satoru ends up asking his mom on how to get close to somebody that he doesn't know. She gives him a real straightforward answer like, oh, just go up and ask to be friends. But Satoru is not trying to go for that method. She's asking him what's up, why he's asking about this, and Satoru explains that there's this girl who he always notices alone and by herself when Sachiko says to just cheer up a little bit. You gotta focus on the more positive side of things. You can't just only think about the negatives and expect the worst outcome out of everything. Sometimes you gotta just let stuff be. But she obviously doesn't know that Satoru knows what's gonna happen in the future, so he still needs to try and get close to her. The next day after
that
school,
makes sense. This kid probably like has so many conversations knowing that this person's gonna die, or this is gonna happen to this person, or like this kid is probably just looking at these people wanting to tell them that this or that's gonna happen, and the whole time he can't, or else he'll mess up the timeline. Even though Kenya, his friend, found out that he traveled back in time. It doesn't make any sense, but we'll continue.
Hiromi, Kenya, and Satoru are all together. They were all going to go to a science center, but Satoru says that he has to go somewhere else first, and as he walks off, Kenya's looking at him real intently. What he ended up doing was following Aya's schedule. So around 4 o'clock, she was hanging out with Yuki by the river. Then she goes to cram school. She gets out of cram school
I'm not even about to say
a couple hours later, and he realizes that he still has time to drop Hiromi off at home and then come back to take her home as well. So that's exactly what he does. While she's in cram school, he goes back and hangs out with Hiromi and Kenya, drops Hiromi off back at home, and then goes back to following Aya out of cram school to see where she goes next. But Out of nowhere, his mom ends up calling him. She was in the area and she had just left the store after buying way too much stuff. So them two got to lug all of these groceries that were on sale, which is why she bought so many, back to the house. They're both there complaining about how heavy everything is when a car honks at them, turning out to be Yashiro. He was just driving by in the area and offers to drive them both home. As they're driving, for some reason, maybe because it's his teacher and he's more familiar with them, Satoru's in the front seat and his mom is in the back. But out of nowhere, he asks him, "Hey, Teach, why exactly aren't you married?" He gets kind of nervous and is like, well, where'd this question come from? But he's like, all right, Satoru, you can only get married if you have a partner, and y'all both got to be ready for it. The time has got to be right. Financials take a part of it. And he's going on, but he kind of cuts himself off, saying, well, not everything has to be perfect. Maybe I'm just a little bit too cautious because of a painful experience from my past. Satoru apologizes for bringing it up, but he says he doesn't mind answering the question. It was no.
Low key, this Yashiro dude is a lot of sus. He's pretty sus. I'm not gonna lie. It seems like he's a teacher, right? He just seems too keen and too on his stuff. He just seems around too much. I have a sixth sense that it's him.
No harm done. Satoru peeps in the bag and notices that his mom is sleeping, and he actually brings up that he had a different question instead. He wants to know how to approach a girl.
Maybe that's why he around a lot, man. He try to find love, like maybe the mom, Satoru's mom, or the Kaio's mom, or who else we got? The grandma, or
girl that he doesn't know. He explains that he knows her, but she doesn't know him. Yashiro starts explaining what he would do in a situation like that. He confirms that he is more the cautious type, so he would kind of do his best to show off his good traits, and whatever she takes interest in, he'll be able to kind of latch off of that and get closer to her through that specifically. Satoru's thinking like, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. But Yashiro's like, don't get too impressed. It's really nothing crazy. It's kind of just being logical. Satoru's looking around when he notices something sticking out of the glove box. He's like, oh, it's something right here. And as he reaches for it to pull it out and see what it is, Yashiro looks over like, don't touch that. But as he pulls it out, Satoru's amazed at what he's seeing. Yashiro says, you've caught me. Now there's no going back. As Satoru just looks out at what fell to the ground, it's a whole bunch of candy. Yashiro's like, it's no point in hiding it anymore. Let me get one of those. As he grabs some of the candy, he hands one to Satoru, saying that he doesn't want to feel like he's doing this all alone.
They be trying to get us. Like,
so he's got to be his accomplice. He's explaining that ever since he quit smoking a few years ago, candy has been his substitute, and honestly, he can't relax without it. Satoru's thinking that this guy is definitely weirder than he had ever noticed, but at the end of the day, he's a pretty good guy. Fast forward to another day at school, and Hiromi's about to go off to the science center when Satoru's like, oh, hold on, wait, I'll go with you. King is noticing that at first he was mad protective over Kaio, and now he's super protective over Hiromi, as he asks Satoru if they can talk in private. So instead of taking Hiromi over to the science center, they end up talking at their little staircase meetup spot. King is asking about what's been going on. He had seen how determined he was to save Kaio, and he saw how much he went.
Kenya need to get more involved. Kenya is the piece that is missing. Satoru needs to understand it. Kenya knows, like, Kenya's a fifth grader, but he got a brain like a high schooler. He gonna figure it out with you. I feel like two brains are better than one. And I feel like if he goes through with his plan, they'll figure out who the killer is. Even though they're both fifth grade. I mean, technically he's 29 in the brain, but
went through it to save her, but what's going on now? Satoru is saying that he can't really explain, but Kenya cuts him off, saying that if there was something going on, he wants to be a part of it. He wants to be able to dig deep and become this savior, this superhero that he looks up to Satoru as, asking them to let him be in on it. Fast forward to later that day, and Satoru and Kenya are back investigating the school bus. They're taking a close look and they see that there are footprints on the ground, but no shoe prints. It looked as if the shoes were wrapped up in some type of cloth in order to hide who could have actually been there. As they open up the bus and walk inside, they see that everything is gone and all torn up. All the stuff that they had set up, all the boxes with that weird equipment that they had found, the bag, everything is gone. And this is when Satoru says he's finally ready to tell him. Satoru asks Kenya if he remembers the guy that had showed up to the bus while Kaio was staying there, the one who showed up in the middle of the night. He's remembering the backpack and all the sketchy stuff that he had left there, and Satoru explains that he believes it's a murderer who targets little children. They're obviously kind of confused on how we'll be able to even deduce that specifically from what they know, and they just don't even know what Satoru is talking about right now. Even Satoru knows that it sounds unbelievable, especially because he can't even give a proper explanation or why he's even coming to this conclusion. He recalls that after seeing the boxes full of briquettes, the bag full of this weird stuff, and just the other materials throughout the bus, he had figured out that this must have been a hiding place where the said serial killer was hiding their tools. And now that it's all over, he also lets them know that this whole Kaio protection arc that they had just went through wasn't just to protect her from her mother's abuse, but to hide her from this murderer as well, which is why he never wanted to leave her alone. Kenya and Hiromi are at a loss for words, and Satoru knows it sounds far-fetched, but Kenya says it doesn't really matter if what he's saying is too far-fetched or not. It's whether he chooses to believe him. He's telling him that 99% of them is saying that this can't be true. It's impossible. But still, there's that 1% saying that it's not totally out of the question. So even if Satoru is just playing detective and looking way too deep into things, even if it's unrealistic and there's no evidence proving so, Kenya says that maybe it's because of the recent events and how he was able to protect Kaio, but he believes that they should let Satoru's feelings guide what they decide to do, and Hiromi agrees. Kenya says that Satoru believed in him enough to give him his side of the story, so he wants to do his part and believe in Satoru as well. And just by hearing this, Satoru gets flashbacks to what Irie had told him, as Kenya had just said something real similar. Remember, she was talking about the feeling of wanting to be able to trust somebody rather than wanting to be trusted, and right now, Kenya is choosing to trust and believe in Satoru, and of course, he's extremely grateful for it. Fast forward to Satoru walking home that night, and he's remembering his original timeline of him crying to his mother in the police station. He's saying that he could have saved Kaio. He remembers all the guilt that he felt that he didn't do enough, and he just never wants to go through that again. This time, he's not going to leave anybody alone. On the next day of school, he goes up to Hiromi and Kenya, asking them to go somewhere with him. At the same time, Kazu and Osamu pull up, asking if they want to go to the hideout, but they all deny, saying that they've got somewhere else to go as they hurry up and leave. But as they leave, Kazu and Osamu decide to follow them. Finally, the last one in the classroom, Misato, closes the book as we just see her walking out the class, slamming the door shut. Next thing we see is a flashback of Satoru's original timeline at his 6th grade graduation. Kaio, Hiromi, and Aya had all went missing and were later found dead. He explains that he had tried his hardest to of Satoru's original timeline at his 6th grade graduation. Kaio, Hiromi, and Aya had all went missing and were later found dead. He explains that he had tried his hardest to forget everything, just erase it from his memory, but all that was left was a hole, a gap in his heart. We get to hear a speech from Yashiro talking about the ups and downs that the class had to experience throughout the school year. And even though they graduate elementary school today, all of them are still lacking in many ways, saying that even himself is no different. But he begins to explain his philosophy, his life philosophy, saying that he believes in finding things to fill those gaps, to fill those holes in your heart. That's what life is all about. And hearing that is what gave Satoru strength to keep going. Back to today, the gang walks.
Who said that? Yashiro? He playing a double-edged game. He playing two sides. He's
up on Aya as she's just there reading the book. She obviously doesn't know who they are, but they introduce themselves as Hiromi, Satoru, and Kenya. She's confused as to why they're even walking up to
you. Gotta get her on your side, Satoru. If you don't, she's dead. It all's up to this right here. This is where It's a make or break
We're in
moment.
the first place,
Got you.
wondering if they had met somewhere before, but they just start talking. Satoru's like, "Oh, you're Aya, right? I heard you're pretty good at piano." So she's like, "Oh, do we have piano class together?" And he's like, "No, not exactly." When Kenya tries to switch the topic so it doesn't get too awkward, he's like, "Oh, what are you reading?" And as she shows him, she's reading Shakespeare, and not even Kenya is that advanced yet. He's like, "Damn, she's reading at even higher levels than me." Suddenly, she stands up like, "I thought I seen you guys somewhere. Y'all are the ones who are always sneaking into that building across the river." And as they look at it, they realize
That's
their
a
quote-unquote hideout is completely visible from the other side. She's like, "Y'all thought that was a hideout? Y'all are mad childish."
No, that's funny.
And after being called childish, Kenya feels some type of way, and Satoru's
Nah,
like,
for real. She, dang, she might be on another level. Oh snap, she on another level because Kenya's smart, and her outsmarting Kenya and being on another reading level. She on it. What?
"Don't say it's childish," but she
Reading
continues on.
Shakespeare at 5th
She's
grade
like,
is
"You boys
crazy.
are always making bases and hideouts or sneaking around. I bet y'all pretend y'all are superheroes or something." And that's when Satoru gets hot, telling her not to make fun of superheroes. But she's like, "It's whatever. I gotta
Is he
go.
supposed to be
I'm
29 years
busy."
old?
But as she starts walking off, she's interrupted by Kazu himself, saying that hideouts are the peak of masculinity. He's telling her to visit the hideout someday when she has the time, and only then will she understand how cool hideouts really are. She calls all of them weird and runs off to wherever she had to go. So
Just
that
let
whole
her go,
mission was pretty much a failure. And the next thing we get to see is the very next day when they pull back up to the hideout. Randomly, Satoru finds the gloves that he had lost all those years ago. Turns out they were actually at the hideout the entire time. As they're just chilling, talking about some games or whatever, Hiromi points out that Aya should be going to the park right around now, seeing if he wanted to go up there and try their little mission again, but he says it's alright since they can make sure she's okay just watching from here, since it's right across the river. He does admit though that they messed up pretty bad. They gave a terrible first impression, so they don't really have another good chance to meet her or try and get close to her, when all of a sudden she swings the door open, saying that she ended up having a little bit of spare time, so she figured she'd come check out the hideout. Kazu is the one who goes ahead and welcomes her and greets her, showing her around. After some time, we get
These some little kids too. That's so tough. They all got a hideout, man. If you had a childhood and you had a hideout, you had a good childhood, especially with a bunch of your friends. You riding your bike in the town or in the neighborhood. You meet a new friends and you just go to the hideout, or you go to explore, or you go to, just see animals or just anything like that. That's just childhood memories. These kids making memories right now.
to see that
So
they
fire.
end up getting pretty close in a very similar way that Satoru and Kaio did. The next day, Kazu
they got
ends
that
up
close?
leaving class before the rest of them do in order to go and meet up with Aya before they both head to the hideout. After a little while, they all eventually make their way to the hideout. Satoru starts thinking about the grand scheme of things. Kaio, Aya, and Hiromi. Those were the 3 original targets from his timeline that were plotted on to be killed. But now, since
wonder if
they're
he's
all
gonna
not
choose
alone
other
anymore,
people.
the killers kind of lost his targets. While obviously that's a good thing, that also means it's going to be a lot harder for Satoru to find out who exactly it is, since he's lost all of his leads. He's
Yeah.
there, locked in, thinking, when Kenya checks up on him. Like, well, what's the move? What we doing? Are we still, quote unquote, playing detective? Which is pretty much his way of saying, is there still something going on? Satoru says, of course, we're not done. There's still some more stuff
They
to
gotta
unfold.
find
As
the
Satoru was
killer.
laying in bed that
Gotcha.
night, he's thinking back to his timeline in 06, where his mom had told Sawada that it was somebody that she knew back in 1988. So it has to be an adult from this timeline. He's thinking that now that the killer lost his main target, he ought to be looking for a substitute. Fast forward to the next day of school, Hiromi's about to walk into the teacher's lounge to go see Yashiro when Misato, the girl from the lunch incident from before, opens the door and at the same time just has this depressed look on her face. She tells Hiromi to move out the way, and as he does, she just walks on. Outside, Osamu, Kenya, and Satoru are all there talking, and 2 of them are gonna go check out the ice hockey game. Satoru is waiting on Hiromi, and when eventually they link up, they end up going home together. Hiromi points out that Misato seems to be real lonely lately. He's obviously seen what they've done for Kaio and Aya and even Hiromi himself, and after realizing, Satoru says that he's gonna try and talk to her. Fast forward to March 15th, and we see Satoru eating his breakfast, and as he's leaving, he's telling his mom that he's gonna be a little bit late home today. She's like, it's fine, that's all good. Just find a way to call me as soon as you know what time.
It's crunch time right here. We got 10 minutes left. It's about to get intense, so everybody get y'all popcorn, get y'all Minute Maid, Fanta, sweet tea. What else? Popcorn, if I already said it. I'm not sure. But get y'all snacks, everybody. Get your licorice. No, I'm just playing. I hate licorice. But man, it's about to get busy. It's about to get busy. Because we need to find out who the killer is.
As he goes off, she tells him to have a good day, and we fast forward to him at the end of class. Misato's walking off, and we get some insight of these girls talking in the background, saying that the teacher is going to take them personally to the ice hockey game. They're trying to keep it real low-key and quiet, so you know who, which is Misato, doesn't hear them. They're trying to leave her out of everything, especially since that incident. She's been ostracized from the rest of the class, but we know that Misato could hear them. She's just choosing to ignore them. Satoru ends up following her out of school and notices that she's taking the bus instead of walking home. And as soon as the bus leaves, the rest of the gang pulls up and they start talking about Misato.
She got to be the next target.
Hiromi says she's probably on her way to the gym because the teacher said that he had invited her to go ahead and cheer on Hamada, which is one of their classmates. And speaking of which, Osama says that him and Kazu went to the game last week and they had noticed that she was watching the game all by herself. Not with the teacher or any of the other classmates, nobody. Satoru says he'll go check it out by himself, and Kenya says to let them know and report back if he has any news tomorrow. Kazu lets him know to come to the hideout if he need anything, and Satoru is like, alright, bet, I appreciate you. As he starts running over there, telling them all that, oh, I'm gonna see you later, over and over and over, and they're all like, he always makes this big deal out of saying see you later every single day.
Let's get to it.
And Kenya's like, I know, right? He acts as if we're not gonna see each other tomorrow. As Satoru makes it to the arena, he's noticing the girls from class, and they're all rooting on Hamada as they have their little back.
Is that kid that lost in the race to Sarasa? He's sorry as hell, boy.
Alongside the teacher who had brought a bunch of food from Yuki's family's company, Shiratori Foods. As he's looking around, he spots Misato sipping on a coffee, and he's realizing
coffee in 5th grade? What are we doing? A coffee in 5th grade is crazy. I ain't started drinking coffee till I was like 17 years old. Why do you need coffee in 5th grade? You got all the energy in the world. Like, these are the type of 5th graders that want to be grown and everything. Bro, I had so many cousins that wanted to be grown with the coffee and this and that. Like, bro, just be a 5th grader. Coffee's crazy. And it doesn't even taste good either. So you can't tell me that it tastes good, because it doesn't. Like,
and she would make the ideal target for the killer, since now she's all alone and is all by herself. That's kind of just how everything played out with what went on with her and Kaio. Suddenly, he notices her holding her stomach, and she starts heading over to the bathroom. After some time passed, he realized that she's taking way too long in there when, out of nowhere, Yashiro walks out. He's kind of embarrassed because he had just went out for a little bit of a candy break, and he's asking what Satoru's doing, as he explains that he just wanted to talk to Misato. He's like, oh, Misato? And he checks outside, indicating that she had just left. Satoru's confused because the game hasn't even started yet when he sees a truck passing by. A truck with Shiratori Foods on the back, Yuki's family's company. Satoru knows something's up as he asks Yashiro for some help. He needs to check something ASAP. The teacher's like, okay. So they end up getting in the teacher's car as they start following this truck down the road. Satoru's explaining why he wanted to follow this truck in the first place and what he needed to confirm. And Yashiro's like, well, if what you're saying is actually true, then we got a big crime on our hands. Satoru's explaining to him that Him and his friends call it playing detective. They pretend that there's this kidnapper on the prowl, and they try their best to make friends with potential victims who were mostly girls who were often lonely. He says it's sort of a precautionary measure against kidnappings. Yashiro's like, I guess it doesn't matter if you're playing if you end up getting results. If you do end up making friends with these people, then there's no real harm done. He reminds Satoru to go ahead and put his seatbelt on, but as he tries it won't go in. It's getting stuck. Teacher's like, oh, so it's been getting real caught up lately. Here, let me get it for you. And he finally fastens it in properly. So the teacher's asking if he realized that Misato has been lonely lately, and Satoru was like, yeah, things had kind of been awkward between them, and he had inadvertently ended up using her almost as bait. Just by using that terminology, Yashiro realizes that Satoru is pretty serious about this, using one of his classmates as bait to figure out who this kidnapper could be. He's not playing no games. And after thinking about it, he says that things are adding up, and it makes sense why he's been so friendly with everybody lately. Satoru agrees, saying that, yeah, quote unquote, I just want to fill the hole in everybody's hearts, both mine's and other people's. Yashiro is shocked, and Satoru realizes that he had just used the exact same words from his 6th grade graduation speech from his original timeline. Yashiro's like, great minds must think alike, huh? Funny enough, that's my exact philosophy in life. I was actually planning on saying it if I was ever put in charge for the 6th grade graduation. He goes on to begin explaining that Satoru shouldn't feel bad if he had inadvertently used Misato as bait, as he begins to explain that both good and bad deeds are two sides of the same coin. They're both things that people do to make up for their shortcomings. Just hearing this, Satoru was thinking that that's a pretty extreme philosophy, kind of an odd way of thinking. Yashiro,
both good and bad things. He said our shortcomings or our way to make up shortcomings in life. I guess you can say that, but to a 5th grader is outrageous.
continues, saying that he's done plenty of things to get closer to a certain somebody himself. Sometimes he'll do things real straightforward, while other times he'll beat around the bush. He admits that he's even resorted to what he'd call quote unquote dirty play, but he also says it's been so much fun. Satoru's confused on what he's talking about, asking if this is some sort of romantic relationship, maybe a potential girlfriend. And he kind of laughs it off, saying that, it's somewhat like a romance if you think about it, or at the very least, what he's doing and romance are both ways to fill a hole in somebody's heart. Now, if you noticed, Yashiro's been tapping the steering wheel this entire time, and when Satoru picks up on it, he's like, oh, you want a candy? You must be having a craving. But when he reaches into the glove box, nothing's there. As they go into the tunnel, Yashiro says, I appreciate it, but there's no candy in there. After all, this isn't my car. As Satoru just looks at him, Yashiro stares back down, smiling. Satoru doesn't want to believe it. What do you mean this isn't your car? But instead of answering, Yashiro continues. He asks, do you think that one's happiest moment in life can continuously change? Because mine just changed right now. It feels like that hole, that void in my heart has finally been fulfilled. He says that after so long of searching for what you've been looking for and trying to make it yours, the more obstacles you run into and the more hurdles you overcome, the more happiness you get when you finally obtain it. Satoru is still confused, wondering what he's even talking about, when he looks back into the glove box and sees an open box of laxatives with 2 of them missing. Yashiro says, Satoru, I can tell that you lied to me about one particular thing. You said that you guys are pretending there's a kidnapper on the loose, but you're acting as if you're 100% sure that there is one. By the way that you've been doing things, I couldn't believe it. Or rather, I didn't want to believe that somebody could predict my thoughts. As he turns left and leaves the truck that they were just following at the intersection. Satoru's looking back at the truck, but Yashiro says it's okay. Misato's not in there, only Yuki's father. Yashiro says that he couldn't be sure of it until he had seen Satoru following Aya that day. The day that he had given Satoru and Sachiko.
Wait, run that back, because I was stuck on that last thought.
Yuki's father. Yashiro says that he couldn't be sure of it until he had seen Satoru following Aya that day. The day that he had given Satoru and Sachiko a ride back home was actually the day that he was going to carry out his plan. And ironically, he had ended up giving Satoru advice on how to steal his quote-unquote prey. He explains that that was the second time that Satoru had foiled his plans. He thought it was just coincidence, crazy luck that Satoru had befriended his targets back to back. So he had convinced Misato, his next target, to go ahead and come to some of the hockey games. He had let Hiromi know about it, and if Satoru showed up, which he did, then Yashiro's suspicion would be confirmed and he would know that Satoru was his enemy. Satoru is in complete disbelief as Yashiro begins breaking down his plan. He had ended up ordering food from Yuki's food company, and timing it up properly, he'd given Misato.
Oh my goodness. I was wondering why she was drinking the coffee. Like, there's no way a 5th grader is drinking coffee. No, he put a laxative? Isn't that make you poop? Or am I tripping? Was it a laxative or was it like the things to make you sleep? I don't know. Either one, though, it's OD.
A drink laced with a laxative. As Satoru was at a loss for words, Yashiro is happy that all the pieces that he had planned had fell right into place and at the perfect time, explaining that this is who he truly is. He's starting to go on and on, going more in depth with his plan, and honestly, what seems like just random stuff at this point. But Satoru's not even listening. He's just thinking of how stupid he was. The killer that he had been chasing this entire time was right under his nose all along. He had knew it was a possibility.
What did I tell ya? What did I tell ya? I told y'all it was Yashiro. I had a feeling. He was around too much.
But he just couldn't accept it. He didn't want to accept it. He remembers seeing Yashiro's name on the list of suspects that he had seen back at Sawada's office, but he had also seen his mom's name on there. So he had disregarded the list completely. And since he had trusted Yashiro and wanted to trust him, wanted to believe in him, he had removed him off of his own list of suspects entirely. But the killer is Yashiro, the man that's been right in front of him the entire time. They continue driving and they're on empty roads at this point, heading to this camp area. But since it's the winter time, it's completely empty. The lakes are frozen as it begins to snow. Yashiro rolls down the window and Satoru begins to realize what's going on as he tries to remove his seatbelt, but he's struggling as Yashiro tells him that he can't take it off. He says, quote unquote, "It's game over for the both of us." We see other visions of people around the city. We see his mom still waiting on that call from him, still waiting to hear when he's going to be home. We see Kazu, Aya, Hiromi, Kenya, and even Kayo enjoying her new life at her grandmother's when Yashiro takes his seatbelt off, saying that he couldn't believe it. He still can't believe that Satoru was able to predict his moves and foil his plans from the very start. He's somewhat embarrassed that he's been forced into this.
Wait, what even was his plan when Shorty went to the bathroom?
He gets real close to Satoru, saying that it's almost as if he's seeing the future. As he gets ready to carry out his final plan, he admits that he's got something he wants to get out the way first, something to get off his chest. He explains what he's about to do isn't for revenge on Satoru for foiling his plans. He says that honestly, he admires him and his capability to do as much as he's done over the past month or so. He says to think of it as a substitute for his desire that he couldn't fulfill earlier. Satoru begins to tear up at this point. He's screaming, saying that didn't he just say it was game over for the both of them? And Yashiro says that it is, but not in the same way as Satoru. He was able to bring peace to this town, which must have been his goal all along. So he's gonna go about saying Satoru's death by his own hands and for his sake alone. Satoru's telling him to fuck off, saying that I'm not gonna die until I see that you're destroyed. But Yashiro's not fazed, pointing out that he's probably being a little too ambitious now. He takes a basketball which he had grabbed from the back seat and jams it underneath the accelerator, causing it to start going forward while Satoru was still in the car. He's struggling, screaming, yelling at Yashiro.
That's why he had gloves. I was wondering why he had gloves, and that's why he went in the wrong car. But how did he even know that car seatbelt wasn't working?
bro, as the car crashes into the frozen lake. Water starts filling the vehicle as it begins to sink. Yashiro says that he's decided to leave this town as Satoru is just going deeper and deeper into the water. But finally, he screams out, "Yashiro, I know what lies in your future."
He's got to save him. Everybody wants to know what their future is gonna look like. He's got to save him. There's no doubt about it. But yo, oh my goodness. How in the world did he get caught? Or did he get caught lacking? Like, Satoru, come on, bro. Come on, you just gotta read the vibes, man. No, bro, I hope Satoru doesn't die. I really do. I really do hope Satoru doesn't die. And Yashiro, I hope something happens. But we got a whole nother episode. I believe it's like 40 minutes. So we'll watch that one all the way through. I won't leave you on a cliffhanger. That'll be the last part. But if y'all enjoyed this reaction, then stick around. Just hit the video should pop up on the screen. But first, before y'all click that, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, or hit that comment. Type in the comments your thoughts. And we're on the way to 1,000 subscribers. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. Peace.